Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant and I'm back with another vibe for you. And somebody suggested that I look at geography now, Cuba. Yeah, I understand what I'm saying, Ting. So that's what we're gonna do. Let me pull up a little bit here, get a little closer, a little bit relaxation and thing. You know what I mean? And I'm still working on the lighting. I don't know if I'm getting it down. Comment down below, tell me if the lighting is better than other videos and thing like that. And but you know, I ain't gonna keep you all so long. Keep commenting, suggesting things like this for me to watch. You know what I mean? And again, I'm adding extra stuff, trying to make it a little scarier because I like watching scary stuff, mythical creatures from history, you know, stuff like that, ghost stories from history and stuff like that. So hit the notification button so you know when those videos are coming out. Anyway, let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer.
Guys, I'm not even joking. If you've never had a Cubano sandwich, just stop. You're doing everything wrong with your life. Just go pause the video, get one, come back here and press play, all right? It's time to learn geography now! It's the mustard. Oh. Hey Geography Peeps, I'm your host Barbie. So if you've been following us on our updates, you'll know that this will be the first episode without a flag section. But don't worry, we will be doing Flag Fridays, so you can learn about the flag on Fridays. But until then, let's jump into the political geography of Cuba.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into it, all right? Cuba is the largest island in the Caribbean and is located in the northern Caribbean Sea, right where the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea meet. The island is made up of over 4,000 smaller islands, keys, and archipelagos that mostly surround the country's coast. These are divided into four main chains and archipelagos: the Colorados, the Sabana Camagüey, the Jardines de la Arena, and the Candarenos, which is where you can find the largest of the islands after Cuba Island, Isla de Juventud, or the Island of Youth, though it was known for being a prison island that Fidel Castro was once sent to. Speaking of which, the entire island of Cuba somewhat resembles the shape of a vacuum cleaner. So anyway, the country is divided into 15 provinces, and Isla de Juventud classifies as a special municipality. The capital and largest city of the country is Havana, located in the north vacuum cleaner handle side of the country, right on the coast, and is home to the seat of government, as well as all these hauntingly beautiful classic buildings that have almost been stuck in a time warp, untouched for decades, that tourists flock from all over the world to see. Camagüey dominates the center, and Santiago de Cuba owns the south as the second and third largest cities. In the south, off the coast of the Santiago de Cuba province, you can find quite a few shipwrecks, many of which are linked to the militaristic past, which brings us to the most controversial little exclave, Guantanamo Bay. Let me just put it this way. Have you ever had a girlfriend or boyfriend that you broke up with, but realized you both had a dog that you shared before breaking up? Yeah, that's kind of what Guantanamo Bay is like. Not getting into too much detail, basically the US and Cuba used to be really good friends, but then after some crazy stuff happened, they kind of cut off all ties, but realized there was still this huge military base set up on the southeast part of the island. Long story short, since the 30s, the US kind of paid Cuba around $4,000 a year to rent out the space, and since the revolution, Cuba has refused to cash any of the checks in protest. This has been going on every year, and it's super weird and awkward. The entire perimeter around Guantanamo Bay is even further encapsulated by a 2,000-foot or so land gap speckled with landmines so that nobody gets in and out. Well, as awkward as that may be, Cuba's interior is anything but. Let's discuss that in. Now, shortly after Christopher Columbus arrived in the Bahamas on his first voyage, he arrived in Cuba and was astounded, stating that Cuba was the most beautiful earth that human eyes had ever seen. So what exactly did Columbus see? Now, of course, it's a no-brainer. Cuba's beaches are quite magnificent with tons of diving spots along the coast. However, go inland and you'll see a whole other side of Cuba that you never knew existed. There are three main mountain chains: the Cordillera de Huanuánico, the Grupo Guayamaya, and the most important mountain range, the Sierra Maestra, dominates the southwestern coast of the island. There's also where you can find the highest peak, Pico Turquí.
See, this is what I'm talking about. If you listen to politics, you're gonna lose the beauty of a place. Separate the politics. Let's look at this. Look at this. Beautiful. And yet, we're fighting so much politically that we miss out on all that beauty. We miss out on Mother Nature's stuff. It's okay to have different political ideas. You know, everybody's got to fight and they got to carry on and thing. And in the meantime, people like me who want to enjoy the cultures and the beautiful landscapes and all that great stuff that every place in this world have to offer. is stuck here going, well, I can't go there because this, and I can't go here because of that. That's sad, man. That's really sad.
However, the Viñales Valley has the strangest mountains, the Los Mogotes Range, made up of rounded tower limestone hills that have been blanketed with vegetation. Also close by, you can find the Pinar del Rio province, where you can find the largest tobacco plantations in the country, a commodity that Cuba is widely known for and has arguably the best quality in the world. Not saying that we directly advocate smoking here on Geography Now, but yeah, statistically speaking, Cuban tobacco really has no competition. It's top notch. Speaking of which, Cuba used to be heavily dependent on sugar and tobacco production for its economy, but today, agriculture only...
I tell you, man, I've smoked Cuban cigars before. When we had our revolution and the Cubans came, they brought the cigars. Now, when you light it up, it's kind of nice, you know what I mean? But if it goes out and you relight it, oh, it's such a... let me put it this way. I did not like the taste after it burns out and you relight it. When you first take a smoke, when you first light it up, there's a nice earthy type of taste. But once that burn goes through that cigar, nah, I didn't like that taste. And I mean, it would make my head spin. It's just pure tobacco, man. Pure tobacco.
Only makes about 10% of the national GDP and 20% of the workforce. Now things have shifted primarily to nickel mining and service and tourism. Coffee is taken very seriously here though. Ask any Latino across the world and they'll know. When Cubans do coffee, they do it strong.
He comes back 5 minutes later, seriously, with a little coaster and a shot glass of coffee.
And apparently this is close to 84 shots of espresso. I had no idea.
I'll bring me a full-size cup of coffee. Take this back. I was frustrated. So the guy's like, okay, and what you want? Okay.
I sure know something might be wrong when I added the cream and it didn't change color.
So I picked it up to my face again and I drank the whole thing.
I drank that cup of coffee. It took me like 30 minutes. It was the most amazing cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. Oh my God, for that 30 minutes, I could see into the future.
I knew I messed up, bro. I knew I messed up because the waiter looked at me and he's like, "Vaya con Dios."
Put that cup of coffee down.
Are we watching the same thing?
Cuba's also home
That was
to
weird.
wildlife and even a few endemic species not found anywhere in the world, like the Cuban trogon, the national bird with its sharp pointy tail feathers, this incredibly small frog, this bird with a hugely disproportionate head, a shrew that spits out poison at its enemies, and just like in the Bahamas episode, Cuba has its own endemic version of the hutia, a large rodent-like creature. Alright, so those are the animals. Now let's see who runs the show in Cuba, shall we?
Let's see.
Now we reach the fun part, and by fun I mean grab your popcorn for the comment section part because this is going to get a little intense. First of all, the country has about 11.3 million people and has one of the lowest birth rates in the Western Hemisphere. Now this is where things get pretty confusing because there are conflicting statistics at hand when it comes to Cuba's racial makeup. The country is incredibly multi-ethnic and complex in its origins. Cuba will tell you that somewhere around 63% of the country is white, 27% mestizo or mulatto, and the rest are black with a small proportion of Asians at around 10%. However, it's not that simple. Even when identifying as white, genetic tests have shown that African ancestry can be traced in anywhere estimated between 30 to 60% of the population, which makes sense since Cuba has historically had a strong black presence. Over 900,000 slaves were brought to Cuba alone during the Atlantic slave trade. That's nearly twice as many that were brought to the United States. Then of course you have small rural communities of disputably indigenous Cubans that claim to have Taino Arawak heritage. It's a little hard to make a solid call, but hey, who knows? Of course, Spanish is the official language, however Cubans have their own distinct dialect that any Latino can distinguish. The country is run by a Marxist, Leninist, socialist, one-party state currently led by Raul Castro, brother of the former leader Fidel Castro, who stepped down in 2011. This is where things get pretty interesting. In the simplest way I can put this, frustrated with capitalist exploitations in Latin America, Fidel and Raul, along with Che Guevara, whom they met in Mexico, overthrew the old Batista regime, inciting the Cuban Revolution. Yada yada yada, they became friends with the USSR, that angered the US, they put up an embargo, World War III almost started, but then it didn't because the X-Men stopped the missiles. Oh wait, that didn't happen. Fortunately. Later on, the USSR dissolved, Cuba lost its stipend, things got even more messed up, and then finally talks and relations just kind of started rekindling all over again. By the way, Cuban Americans think it's ridiculous when all you college sophomore and neo hippies put up the Che Guevara posters on your dorm room walls right next to your Buddha statues and dreadlock wax because, hey, you're the future. Anyway, enough history, let's talk diplomacy.
What was that, Bob?
So as we kind of mentioned before, Cuba has quite a complex outreach. First of all, Cuba would probably consider the Dominican Republic and the unincorporated U.S. territory island of Puerto Rico, which by all reasonable definitions is kind of like its own country, as their closest cultural friends. As the largest sources of Latino influence in the Caribbean, these three have stuck out from day one and have always enjoyed each other's company. When it comes to the U.S., Cuba kind of just started to rekindle what was lost. President Obama lifted sanctions, opening the door for Cuban-U.S. relations, and was the first U.S. president to visit Cuba since Calvin Coolidge in 1928.
Wow.
There's already also a ton of Cuban Americans living in the U.S., most heavily in the state of Florida. Hey, Jesse. When it comes to their best friends, many Cubans might say Venezuela. When no one else would help them out during all the years of craziness, Venezuela stepped in and gave them supplies, food, and oil, and Cuba in return sent Venezuela technical personnel to offer social services. Chavez and Castro totally agreed on a lot of things and worked together on a lot of projects. In conclusion, Cuba became the only Caribbean island nation to adopt a Marxist-Leninist political ideology, and things got a little heated in the 20th century. But nonetheless, they're a proud, colorful nation of fierce culture and resilience. Seriously, must be something they put in that coffee. Stay tuned. Coming up next, Cyprus!
Wrong, Bart. Grenada did that for 4 years. Had that Marxist type of stuff and, you know, was friendly with Castro and all of that. So Grenada did that for 4 years. They weren't the only Caribbean country that proclaimed that Marxist Leninist thing there for a minute. But Grenada for a minute. But anyway, that was quite interesting, you know what I mean? And I guess, yeah, it would be hard to decipher the genetic makeup, I guess, of the racial makeup of Cuba, because for years they had an embargo. Nobody really was going down there and doing any studying and anything like that. And the food is good. Man, I tell you, they could make candy out of anything. And I think it was a necessity to do stuff like that because of the trade embargo. They weren't getting anything, so they had to make all this stuff locally. I had a brother that spent 3 months in Cuba, you know what I mean? And he was surprised. See, there was churches there. There was churches on corners and stuff, you know, of course, the old buildings and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And so they've been isolated so long, a lot of people, there's a lot of misinformation about them, you know what I mean? But before the Cubans came to Grenada, I expected them to be this warrior type and, you know what I mean? And then they turned out to be just like me. Busting their tail to make ends meet. Just like everybody else, man. That's why I always say, well, at the end of this is meet a stranger, learn about a stranger. The Cubans that migrated here, they have a story too. You know, it's good to listen to both sides of the story, you know, because some people like Fidel and others didn't, you know what I mean? And but you hear both sides of the story. That's where the humanity merges. That's where people are going to realize that they're not that different. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, y'all take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.